Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're not just looking at a grammar worksheet, we're going to treat it like a full-on training session to really strengthen your writing skills.
Okay, are you ready for this? Let's dive right in and get those grammar muscles warmed up and ready to go.
So here's our game plan. We've got 5 key training stations we're going to hit. We'll start with mastering verbs, then move on to building better sentences, spotting and fixing errors, transforming sentence form, and we'll wrap it all up by seeing this grammar in an actual conversation.
All right, let's start with our warm-up, mastering verbs. Seriously, these are the powerhouses, the engines of every single sentence. We're going to look at tenses, voice, and even those tricky conditional sentences.
First up is what's called a cloze test. Now that's just a fancy term for a fill-in-the-blanks exercise. The real key here is to pay attention to the timeline. Look for clue words like last week and by Wednesday. They'll tell you which verb tense you need. Go ahead and hit pause here and give it your best shot.
So, how did you do? Let's break this down. What's so cool here is how the verb tenses actually tell a story. It starts in the simple past, the team called for articles. But look at number 2. They had received the entries before something else happened in the past. That's why we need the past perfect. Then it shifts to the passive voice with was assigned, which puts the focus on the task itself, not who is doing it. It's a whole narrative told just through verbs.
Next, let's talk about voice. You know, the easiest way to think about this is to ask, who's the star of the sentence? In the active voice, the subject, the curator, is the hero. They're doing the action. But in the passive voice, we flip the camera around. Suddenly, the artifacts are the main character, and the focus is on what happened to them. It's a super useful tool for changing the emphasis.
And this brings us to conditionals, specifically the what-if sentences about the past. Now, the technical name is the third conditional, but honestly, just think of it as the regret tense. You know, if we had started on time, we would have finished. You're talking about a past that didn't happen and the impossible result. It's a really powerful way to talk about hypotheticals. All right, warm-up is done. Time for some strength training. Now we're going to focus on building really strong, clear, and coherent sentences. So your first challenge is to unscramble these words into a logical sentence. Here's a hint. Think about that classic subject-verb-object structure we use in English. That should help you find the right order.
And there you have it. The samples were collected carefully. You can see that structure, right? The samples, that's our subject, were collected, that's our verb phrase, and carefully tells us how it was done. It's another perfect example of the passive voice creating a really clear and direct statement.
Combining sentences is all about making your writing flow better so it doesn't sound all choppy. It's kind of like being a detective. You have to find the logical link between two ideas. Take this example. The researcher presented a model. It predicts rainfall accurately. The second sentence is obviously describing the model. So what's the best way to link them?
By using a simple connector word like that, we can weave these two ideas together. And what do we get? The researcher presented a model that predicts rainfall accurately. We just turned 2 short, simple sentences into one smoother, more sophisticated thought. This is a game changer for your writing flow.
Okay, next up, it's time for an agility drill. This is all about sharpening your proofreading skills. Get ready to spot those sneaky errors and fix them fast.
All right, take a close look at this sentence. There is a very, very common mistake here, and it has to do with subject-verb agreement. Can you spot the word that's breaking the rule?
Did you catch it? The error was submit. The fix is submits. But why? Because the subject is each team. That little word each treats the whole group as one single unit, so it needs a singular verb. It's a tricky rule for sure, but once you learn to look out for words like each or every, it gets way easier.
And as this chart shows, these kinds of errors pop up all over the place, with words like each, with collective nouns like gallery, and definitely with uncountable nouns like equipment. The key thing to remember is that even though a gallery has a lot of paintings, the word gallery itself is singular. So, the gallery was arranged. Same with equipment. It might be a lot of items, but it's treated as one single concept, so all the equipment was checked.
Okay, let's move on and get a bit more flexible. Now we're going to see how we can transform sentences into different grammatical shapes while keeping the core message exactly the same. Think of this table as your ultimate cheat sheet for changing direct speech, what someone literally said, into reported speech. The main rule of thumb is that everything just takes one step back in time. Present becomes past, past becomes past perfect. And notice how questions and commands change their form too. A question like, why didn't you, becomes a statement. why she hadn't. And a command like please share becomes the infinitive to share. Now this is a fantastic technique called inversion. When you start a sentence with a phrase like only when, you actually flip the normal subject-verb order to add emphasis. So instead of saying I realized, the structure inverts to did I realize. It's a really effective way to make your statement sound more dramatic and impactful.
And for our final section, the cool down. Let's see how all these different rules and concepts actually come together in a natural, real-world conversation.
Okay, for our cool down, let's put it all into practice with this dialogue. To fill in these blanks correctly, you can't just think about the rules in a vacuum. You have to think about the context. Is someone making a suggestion? Are they planning for a possible future event? Go on, hit pause and see what words you think fit best.
All right, let's look at the solutions. For that first one, should we add is just a polite suggestion. For the second, if the microphones arrive late, we use the simple present tense because it's a real, possible thing that can happen in the future. It's a first conditional. You see, each choice depends on the specific, precise meaning you're trying to get across. It's like picking just the right tool from your toolbox. And just like that, you have worked through 10 distinct grammar challenges, building strength, agility, and flexibility in your writing. That is a comprehensive workout.
And with that, our workout is complete. But before you go, think about this for a second. Which of these exercises challenged you the most? Was it the verb tenses, spotting those tricky subject-verb agreement errors? Identifying the spot where you really felt the burn is the best way to know exactly what to focus on next, and that is your biggest takeaway from this session.